The doorbell pierced the quiet afternoon like a sudden crack of thunder, jolting Lena from her reverie. She stood in the kitchen, hands slick with dishwater, a half-scrubbed plate slipping from her grasp to clatter against the sink. Her heart thudded against her ribcage as she wiped her hands on a faded blue towel, her breath catching in her throat. "Miles, stay here," she called out, her voice trembling slightly as she glanced toward the living room where her son was sprawled on the couch, engrossed in a video game. She didn't wait for his response. Her feet moved of their own accord, carrying her toward the front door with a mix of dread and curiosity. Peering through the peephole, Lena felt the world tilt beneath her. Standing on the doorstep was Margarethe, her mother-in-law, a woman she hadn't seen in nearly 8 months. Margaret's arms were laden with overstuffed bags, her face lit with a warm, unsuspecting smile that made Lena's stomach twist into knots. "Oh God, she doesn't know," Lena whispered to herself, her fingers fumbling with the lock. The key turned with a reluctant groan, and the door swung open to reveal Margaret in all her poised elegancia, tailored camel coat draped over her tall frame, silver hair swept into a neat chignon. "Lena, darling," Margaret exclaimed, stepping forward with open arms. But then she stopped. Her eyes darted past Lena, scanning the hallway with a flicker of confusion. The worn leather boots that once lined the entryway shelf were gone. The navy jacket, James's favorite, the one he'd worn through every winter for a decade, had vanished from its usual hook. Margaret's gaze returned to Lena, and the smile faltered, replaced by a shadow of unease. "Where's James?" she asked, her voice soft but edged with a dawning realization. Lena swallowed hard, stepping aside. "Come in, Margaret. Let me take those bags." Before Margaret could respond, a burst of noise erupted from the living room. "Grandma!" Miles shouted, leaping from the couch, his game controller abandoned. Close behind him came 7-year-old Sophie, her pigtails bouncing as she raced toward her grandmother with a squeal of delight. Margaret set the bags down just in time to catch them, enveloping both children in a tight embrace. "My little treasures," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion as she pressed kisses to their foreheads. Lena watched the reunion, a lump rising in her throat. Not so long ago, these moments had been routine family dinners filled with laughter, James's booming voice anchoring the chaos. Now every glance felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm of unspoken truths. "Grandma, are you staying forever?" Sophie asked, clinging to Margaret's neck. "What did you bring us?" Miles chimed in, already tugging at the bags. Margaret chuckled, ruffling their hair, but her eyes kept drifting back to Lena, searching for answers she hadn't yet dared to voice. "Kids," Lena said gently, "let Grandma take off her coat and settle in. Why don't you head to the living room?" The children obeyed reluctantly, dragging the bags with them as they chattered about their spoils. A heavy silence descended in their wake, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Margaret slipped off her coat, hanging it carefully on the empty rack. "I tried calling James," she said finally, her tone measured. "For weeks. His phone was always off or it went straight to voicemail. I decided to come see for myself." She paused, her sharp blue eyes locking onto Lena's. "What's going on?" Lena's fingers twisted together, her nails digging into her palms. "Margaret, she was cut off by Sophie's sudden reappearance, clutching a brightly colored doll. "Mom, look what Grandma brought me." "It's beautiful, honey," Lena managed, forcing a smile as she brushed a hand over her daughter's head. "Miles, take Sophie back to the playroom for a bit. Okay? Grandma and I need to talk." The kids shuffled off and the silence returned, thicker this time, pressing against the walls. Outside, the late afternoon light filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. "How long?" Margaret asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long has he been gone?" Lena exhaled, the weight of the question pinning her in place. "For months," she said at last. "He left. For someone else. A woman from his office. 10 years younger than me. He packed a suitcase one night and just walked out." Margaret closed her eyes, her hands trembling as they rested on the arm of the couch. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice tight. "Her name's Caitlin. She started at his firm last year. I don't know much beyond that." He didn't exactly leave a detailed explanation. Lena's words came out clipped, bitterness seeping through despite her efforts to keep them neutral. Why didn't you tell me? Margaret's tone carried a sting of hurt, her brows knitting together. Lena looked away, her gaze settling on a framed photo on the mantel. James lifting Sophie onto his shoulders at the beach, Miles grinning beside them. I didn't know how, she admitted. You always spoke so highly of him. He was your golden boy. I thought, maybe you'd blame me. He's my son, Margaret said slowly, but that doesn't mean I'm blind to his faults. She paused, her lips pressing into a thin line. How are the children? Lena's voice cracked as she answered. Miles knows everything. He's 11, too smart to be fooled. He tries to be strong, but I hear him crying sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep. Sophie. She keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. I don't know what to tell her anymore. Margaret rose and crossed to the window, her silhouette stark against the fading daylight. Does he see them? Barely. He cancels more often than he shows up. Always some excuse work, a meeting, something. Lena's hands clenched into fists. He sends money, but it's not enough. I've gone back to teaching full-time, picked up tutoring on the side. We're managing, but just barely. Margaret turned, her face etched with a mix of sorrow and resolve. Why would he do this? She murmured, more to herself than to Lena. His father and I raised him to be better than this. Before Lena could respond, Sophie burst back into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. Grandma, when's Daddy coming? You're gonna call him, right? Tell him you're here. The two women exchanged a glance, the air between them heavy with unspoken grief. Margaret knelt, pulling Sophie into her arms. My sweet girl, she said, her voice wavering. Daddy's very busy with work, but I'll talk to him soon, I promise. Lena turned away, blinking back tears. How many times had she dodged those same questions, weaving fragile lies to shield her daughter's heart? Can I draw a picture for Daddy? Sophie asked, her face brightening. Will you give it to him? Of course, darling, Margaret replied, forcing a smile. Go draw something beautiful. As Sophie scampered off, Margaret straightened, her shoulders slumping. Forgive me, Lena. For what? For my son. For not raising him to be the man he should have been. For not being here sooner. Her voice broke and she pressed a hand to her mouth. Lena shook her head, stepping closer. You're not to blame. You've always been wonderful to me, to the kids. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. Margaret's eyes softened. I had a feeling something was wrong. A mother's intuition, I suppose. But I kept telling myself he was just busy, that everything was fine. She sighed, sinking back onto the couch. What are you going to do now? Lena shrugged, her voice hollow. Keep going. For the kids. I don't have another option. There's always an option, Margaret said firmly. And you're not doing this alone. I'll talk to James tomorrow, let him try dodging me. Then we'll figure out how to make this work. Maybe you could move closer to us, Henry, and I would love to have you near. The kids have school here, they're friends. Lena trailed off, the logistics overwhelming her. That's all manageable, Margaret insisted. The priority is that you're not isolated. A sudden crash from the playroom jolted them both upright, followed by Sophie's wail. They hurried down the hall to find her sitting amid a pile of spilled art supplies, a toppled chair beside her. Miles hovered nearby, guilt etched across his face. I tried to help her reach the markers, he mumbled. Margaret scooped Sophie up, cradling her as she sobbed. Hush, love, it's all right. We'll clean it up together. Lena knelt to gather the scattered crayons, her hands immobile mechanically while her mind churned. When the kids were finally settled, Sophie calmed and Miles reassured. The two women retreated to the kitchen, cups of chamomile tea steaming between them. Do you remember how we met? Margaret asked, breaking the quiet. Lena managed a faint smile. How could I forget? I was a nervous wreck. Spilled coffee all over your dining table because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I thought you'd hate me. Margaret chuckled softly. I thought, this girl's genuine. No pretense. I knew right then you were perfect for James. She paused, her expression darkening. Or so I believed. Guess we were both wrong, Lena said, her voice tinged with bitterness. No, Margaret countered, her tone resolute. You gave him everything: a home, a family, two incredible children. If he couldn't see that, it's his failure, not yours. A car rumbled past outside, its headlights briefly flooding the kitchen with a harsh glow. Lena squinted, then spoke into the dimness. Sometimes I wonder if I missed something. If I'd focus more on him instead of the kids, the house, my job. Stop that, Margaret cut in sharply. Don't you dare take this on yourself. You were an extraordinary wife, and you're an even better mother. The next morning dawned with the scent of cinnamon wafting through the house. Margaret had risen early, her sleeves rolled up as she flipped pancakes on the griddle. Miles wandered in first, drawn by the aroma. Grandma, did you stay up all night? He teased, climbing onto a stool. No, sweetheart, she replied with a smile. I just don't need much sleep these days. Besides, I wanted to spoil you a little. Dad loved your pancakes, Miles said suddenly, his voice small. The kitchen fell silent, the sizzle of batter the only sound. Margaret turned slowly, spatula in hand. You know, Miles, no matter what happens, you've got me and Grandpa. Always. I know, he murmured, poking at his plate. Are you really gonna talk to Dad? Yes, she said, her jaw tightening. I will. Lena shuffled in, still in her robe, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Morning, Margaret. You didn't have to do all this. Nonsense, Margaret waved her off. Sit down. I've got it under control. Go wake Sophie, she'll be late for school. After breakfast, the morning routine kicked into gear. Lena braided Sophie's hair while Miles double-checked his backpack. Margaret packed apple slices and granola bars into their lunchboxes. I could take them today, she offered. Give you a break. Lena hesitated. The school might ask questions. Fair enough, Margaret conceded. I'll tidy up here instead. Tonight we'll cook dinner together, something special. As the door clicked shut behind Lena and the kids, Margaret sank into a chair, pulling her phone from her pocket. She scrolled to James's number, her thumb hovering over the call button. What could she say to a son who'd abandoned his family? How could she convey the ache she'd seen in Miles's eyes, the confusion in Sophie's? Steeling herself, she pressed call. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello, Mom. James's voice came through, tinged with surprise. Is something wrong? Something's wrong, all right, she snapped. I'm at your house, James. With your real family. A pause stretched across the line. Mom, I can't talk now. I'm at work. You can and you will, she interrupted, her voice rising. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you could toss 15 years of marriage out the window and leave your children behind? I haven't left them, he protested. I send money, I call. You think that's enough? Margaret's anger flared. Do you know Miles cries himself to sleep? That Sophie asks for you every day? Money doesn't fix that, James. Mom, it's complicated. What's complicated about Loveying your kids? She shot back. Explain it to me. I love them, he said, his voice cracking. But I deserve to be happy too. Happy? She let out a bitter laugh. What's happiness worth when it's built on betrayal? I didn't raise you to run from your responsibilities. Another silence, punctuated by his uneven breathing. Mom, I have a meeting. I have to go. You always run, she said, shaking her head. Just like your father warned you not to. After the call, Margaret sat motionless, staring at the blank wall. Then she stood, emevoying with purpose as she began to clean, wiping counters, sweeping floors, anything to keep her hands busy. In the Levying room, she spotted a family album tucked beneath a stack of magazines. She pulled it free and opened it, her breath catching at the first photo. James and Lena on their wedding day, radiant and carefree. She flipped through Miles's birth, James cradling him with pride. Sophie's first wobbly steps. A trip to the lake, all 4 of them laughing in the sun. Tears blurred her VY shown, dripping onto the pages. She wiped them away, closing the book with a soft thud. The day crawled by. She cooked a pot of soup, ran to the corner store for milk, and dusted shelves that hadn't been touched in weeks. By 3, Lena returned with Sophie, Miles trailing home shortly after. Grandma, what's for lunch? He asked, dropping his backpack by the door. Chicken noodle soup, she replied, pulling him into a hug. This is home, Miles. You're loved here more than anything. That evening, after the kids were tucked in, Margaret recounted her conversation with James. I didn't want to meddle, Lena said quietly, staring into her tea. It's not meddling, Margaret replied. He's made choices, but when you have children, your choices aren't just yours anymore. They ripple. Lena's eyes welled up. The worst part? I still love him. After everything. Margaret reached across the table, squeezing her hand. That's not weakness, Lena. It's strength. The next morning James called. Mom, he began, his voice rough with guilt. I've been thinking about what you said. And? She prompted, keeping her tone neutral. Maybe I should see the kids. I miss them. Are you sure you're ready to face them? She asked. To answer their questions? A long pause. I miss them, Mom. I really do. Then come, she said. Stop hiding. I'm scared, he admitted after a beat. Scared they'll hate me. Try explaining it to me first, she softened. What happened, James? Where did it go wrong? I don't know, he said, his voice thick with confusion. Life felt stagnant, like I was missing out. I thought Caitlin was the answer. And was she? No, he sighed. She was a mistake. A huge one. Mistakes can be undone, Margaret said carefully. If you mean it. How's Lena? He asked, tentative. She's holding everything together, she replied, a steel edge creeping in. Working herself to the bone while you chase happiness. I know she's special, he murmured. I always knew. Then why? Margaret pressed. I don't know, he repeated, quieter this time. I'll come tonight if it's okay. Will you be there? I'll be here, she said. For the kids. Lena took the news with a calm that surprised even herself. Let him come, she said. The kids need him. Are you sure? Margaret asked. No, Lena confessed. But they miss him too much. The day stretched taut with anticipation. Lena moved through her tasks, grading papers, folding laundry, her hands betraying her nerves with every tremble. The kids sensed it too. Mom, why were you acting weird? Sophie asked over lunch. Just tired, sweetie, Lena lied, brushing a kiss across her forehead. Simon watched silently, his sharp eyes darting between his mother and grandmother. Later, alone with Margaret, he whispered, Is something wrong? You'll see tonight, she replied, pulling him close. At 6, the doorbell rang. Lena froze, her face draining of color. I'll get it, Margaret said, striding to the door. James stood there, disheveled and weary, clutching a bag of gifts. Hi, Mom, he said, his voice barely audible. She stepped aside, letting him in. Lena appeared in the hallway, her expression unreadable. Hello, she said flatly. Lena, James started, but a shriek cut him off. Daddy! Sophie barreled toward him, throwing herself into his arms. He lifted her, tears glistening in his eyes as he held her tight. My girl, he whispered. Miles lingered in the doorway, his face a storm of emotions, relief, anger, uncertainty. Son, James said, reaching out. Miles approached slowly, and when James tried to hug him, he stiffened but didn't pull away. Where've you been? Miles asked, his voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. Why'd you stay away? The silence was suffocating. Sophie glanced between them, puzzled. I had work, James stammered. Important stuff. You're lying, Miles said, his eyes narrowing. I know you left for someone else. Lena paled further, and Margaret rested a hand on her shoulder. James sank to his knees, meeting his son's gaze. You're right. I messed up, Miles. Badly. And you all paid for it. We hurt, Miles said, his voice breaking. Sophie cried. Mom cries when she thinks I don't hear. Sophie tugged at James's sleeve. Daddy, are you staying now? He looked to Lena, helpless. She stood rigid, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. Let's go inside, Margaret suggested. We need to talk. They settled awkwardly, James in an armchair with Sophie on his lap, Miles beside Lena on the couch, Margaret by the window. I brought gifts, James said, fumbling with the bag. We don't want gifts, Miles snapped. We want a dad. A real one. I am real, James insisted, his voice cracking. No, Miles shot back, leaping up. Real dads don't leave. He stormed out, tears streaming down his face. Lena moved to follow, but Margaret stopped her. I'll go. Sophie, still on James's lap, tilted her head. Daddy, is that other lady nice? Lena stood abruptly. Bedtime, Sophie. But Mom. No buts, Lena said, her tone final. She led Sophie away, leaving James alone with his guilt. He buried his face in his hands. What have I done? Margaret returned minutes later. Miles is in his room. He's done talking. Why'd you come? Lena asked, re-entering the room, her voice sharp. I missed the kids, James said. And you. Just the kids, she retorted, bitterness lacing her words. No, he admitted, meeting her eyes. I ruined everything, Lena. I thought I'd found something with her, but it wasn't real. Not like us. And now, she pressed. Now I see it, he said, standing. I betrayed you, the kids, everything I stood for. I want to fix it. What about her? Lena's voice trembled. A mistake, he said firmly. It's over. Margaret watched, her heart aching for them all. I don't know if I can trust you, Lena said softly. Too much has happened. I'll prove it, James vowed. Every day if you'll let me. The kids come first, Margaret interjected. Always. I know, James nodded. I didn't before, but I do now. Lena excused herself to check on Sophie, and James followed hesitantly. She nodded, allowing him into the dimly lit room where their daughter slept. He sat by her bed, brushing a strand of hair from her face, then moved to Miles's room, where the boy lay still, feigning sleep. It's time to go, Lena said when he returned. Can I come tomorrow? He asked. For the kids? Yes, she replied. We'll see. When the door closed behind him, Lena sank onto the couch, exhausted. How are you? Margaret asked. Lost, Lena whispered. I imagined this 1,000 times, but now, I don't know what's next. What does your heart say? Margaret pressed gently. It's a mess, Lena admitted. Torn between what's right and what I feel. The next morning, Margaret prepared to leave. Henry's waiting, she said, hugging Lena. You'll figure this out. You're stronger than you know. Stay, Lena pleaded. I need you. You've got this, Margaret assured her. Call me anytime. Grandma, will you sit soon? Sophie asked, clinging to her. Of course, Margaret promised, then turned to Miles. Did Dad change? People can, she said, kneeling before him. If they want to. It takes time and forgiveness. What if I can't? He murmured. That's okay, she replied, cupping his face. Just listen to yourself. Before departing, Margaret pulled Lena aside. Your family always. Whatever you choose, I'm here. That evening, James returned, carrying Sophie's old stuffed rabbit. Found it at my place, he said. Miles stayed in his room, but Sophie greeted him with glee. Can we walk? James suggested. All of us. Lena wavered, then relented at Sophie's pleading. In the park, Sophie raced to the swings while Miles trailed behind. How's work? Lena asked, breaking the ice. Fine, James replied. Lena, I've thought about us non-stop. What we had, what I threw away. She watched Sophie soar, her voice quiet. The hardest part is her questions. Making excuses for you. I'll fix it, he promised. I swear. Don't swear, she said. Just be here. Miles approached. Dad, remember the kite we flew here? I do, James said, his throat tight. You loved it. Can we again? Miles asked. Anytime, James replied, resting a hand on his shoulder. Miles didn't flinch. Days turned to weeks. James came nightly helping with homework, reading to Sophie, proving his intent with actions. Lena observed, hope flickering amid her caution. One night he lingered. I never stopped loving you, he said. Her heart ached, but she stayed silent. A month later, he brought the family album he'd taken. It belongs here, he said. Home. Home, she echoed, the word settling deep. One evening, Miles asked James to stay for math help. Lena overheard their talk. Dad, will you leave again? Never, James vowed. Unless you and Mom want me to. Gradually life reshaped itself. James' changeless bravado more presence. Lena grew stronger, trusting bit by bit. The kids healed, their laughter returning. One night Sophie mumbled sleepily, "I'm glad Daddy's back." At Margaret's house for a weekend, the family reunited. Henry, gruff but tender, hugged his grandkids. "Take care of them, James," he warned. "You don't get chances like this twice." "I know, Dad," James replied. On the porch later, Margaret smiled. "You became family that first day, Lena. Forever." Driving home, Sophie slept against Miles. "Can I stay tonight?" James asked. "Yes," Lena said after a pause. "Little steps. Day by day," he agreed. Months passed, wounds fading into scars. One rainy night, James recalled their meeting. "You gave me your umbrella," Lena teased. "And I'd do it again," he said. "Every time." In the park, they flew the kite again, laughter ringing out. "Everything's possible," Lena told him. "If you believe." Calling Margaret later, she said, "It's better now." "I always believed in you," Margaret replied. Simon at breakfast one morning said, "Love means forgiving, right?" "Wiser than us all," James laughed, hugging him. 6 months after Margaret's arrival, they celebrated New Year's together. "My wish came true," James whispered to Lena. "You gave me this chance." Simon added, "I'm glad we're us again." Olivia beamed. "I knew Daddy'd come back. I believed." Life moved forward, a tapestry of challenges and joys, woven stronger by forgiveness, love, and second chances. Margaret watched, knowing some losses reveal what truly matters, and sometimes, fate offers a way to reclaim it, deeper than before.